Hey Reddit, and welcome back to another deep dive story. Today's tale is something that honestly still makes the storyteller laugh, cringe, get angry, and shake his head all at once. It's one of those stories you hear and think, there's no way this actually happened, but trust me, it did. Now before we begin, let me warn you. This isn't just your regular workplace drama. No, this is a story filled with irony, hidden truths, unexpected honesty, and one of the most unintentionally awkward conversations you could imagine. This story was originally shared by you, who decided to reveal one of the strangest experiences he ever had as a business owner. And what makes this story truly unbelievable is not the drama itself, but the fact that the entire situation unfolded because one employee, one very bold, very talkative employee, had absolutely no idea who he was speaking to. If you enjoy long, detailed stories, the kind where every minute adds a new layer, every conversation builds more tension, and every moment makes you wonder how things will eventually explode, then trust me, you are in for a treat today. This story is filled with twists, real emotions, misunderstandings, and a whole lot of unfiltered opinions. In fact, the storyteller himself described this moment as the most painfully honest conversation anyone has ever had with me, and the man didn't even know who I was, and honestly, that's what makes it so good. Short teaser. So, here's the situation in a nutshell. Imagine being an owner, the person who built the business from scratch, who pays the salaries, who makes every major decision. Now imagine one of your own workers pulling you aside and spending 45 straight minutes ranting about how lazy, useless, and never present the owner is, and the entire time he is talking to the owner himself. No filters, no hesitation, no idea. Just pure, unedited honesty. And believe me, every single word he said, well, it changed things a lot. So sit back, relax, grab a drink or some snacks, and get ready for one of the most bizarre and ironically hilarious workplace stories you'll ever hear. Because this, Reddit, is the story of how one employee accidentally revealed everything he really thought about his boss, without realizing he was confessing it to the boss himself. Let's begin. At the time of this story, I was 32 years old enough to have experience, young enough to still make mistakes, and right in that age window where you're juggling responsibilities you never thought you'd have. I had been running my business for a few years, a small but growing company that required a lot of behind-the-scenes work. And I don't mean the glamorous kind of work, not the type you show on social media. I mean the real, gritty stuff: paperwork, finances, meetings, vendor negotiations, late nights, early mornings, all the things nobody sees but everyone benefits from. Narrator continues. The business itself wasn't some huge corporation. It was modest, built with my own savings, my own risk, and honestly, a lot of sleepless nights. It started as a passion project and slowly grew into a place that employed several people who relied on me, people who trusted me, and I took that responsibility seriously. But here's the funny part: because I spent so much time handling everything from the background, most of my employees rarely saw me on the floor. I wasn't the type of owner who hovered. I wasn't the type who micromanaged. In fact, I preferred to stay low-key, observing quietly, stepping in only when needed, and letting my people do their jobs without feeling watched. But as you'll soon realize, that low-key presence, yeah, it backfired in the most unexpected way. I lived about 20 minutes away from the business, in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just a simple place where I could get some peace after long days, and at the time, my personal life was pretty steady. My family supported me, even though they didn't always understand why I chose such a stressful path. I didn't have much of a social life. Owning a business does that to you. It becomes your life, your morning, your night, your weekends, your everything. As for the business itself, it had a small group of employees, a mix of different personalities, hardworking, unique, sometimes chaotic, but overall, people I genuinely liked. Some of them had been there from the beginning, others were newer. But among all the different voices and characters, there was one man, one guy who would become the center of this entire story. At this point, he was just another employee to me, not the best, not the worst, just someone who did his job, cracked jokes, and showed up on time. I didn't know much about his personal life, except that he talked a lot about everything to anyone who would listen. He had strong opinions about coworkers, customers, life, politics, sports, and apparently about the owner. The atmosphere in the workplace was usually pretty calm. Everyone had their roles, their routines. You hear the usual background noises, conversations, equipment running, footsteps, laughter, the occasional argument. Nothing unusual, nothing that hinted at what was coming. Looking back now, I realized there were small signs, not obvious ones, subtle things. The occasional comment, the passing joke, moments where someone would say something about the owner with a tone that made me raise an eyebrow, but I brushed it off. After all, workers vent. It's normal, and if I reacted to every little complaint, I'd go crazy. Besides, no one ever complained directly to me, which made what happened later even more surprising. So that's where this story begins. A small, growing business, a busy owner who mostly worked from behind the scenes, and a group of employees who thought the boss was barely around. I didn't know it yet, but within a single conversation, a 45-minute, non-stop confession session, I was about to hear everything my worker truly felt about me. Everything he admired, everything he hated, everything he misunderstood, and the funniest part, he didn't know he was talking to me. No shortening, no rushing, full detail and atmosphere. To understand how everything unfolded, you need to know the people involved, because this story isn't just about me and one outspoken worker, it's about personalities, habits, tensions, and the little details that slowly build into something much bigger. I'll start with myself, just to give you a clear picture. I'm not the type of owner who walks around with an ego. I don't flaunt authority. I don't walk into the building expecting people to straighten their backs or salute like I'm some kind of general. In fact, most days, I walk in quietly, casual clothes, no fancy posture, nothing that screams boss. I always felt that respect should come from character, not job title. But unfortunately, that philosophy can sometimes make people forget who you really are. Now, let me introduce the guy who unintentionally turned a normal day into one of the strangest moments of my life. His name, let's call him Adam for the sake of the story. Adam was in his late 20s, maybe 28, tall, energetic, always moving around, always talking. He had that kind of personality where silence made him uncomfortable, so he filled every gap with stories, jokes, rants, theories, anything that came to his mind. If you ask the staff to describe him, they probably say, good worker, a bit dramatic, talks too much, means well. Most of the time, he wasn't a bad guy, he wasn't lazy, he wasn't a troublemaker. But he had opinions and he wasn't shy about sharing them, especially when it came to management. He had been with the company for a little over a year, long enough to understand how things worked, but not long enough to really know the full picture. And because he didn't see the behind-the-scenes work I did, he formed his own story about me. A story that he believed so strongly, he was willing to complain about it for 45 minutes straight. There were other workers too, each with their own personalities. There was Sam, who was quiet and observant, the opposite of Adam. There was Lena, sharp, organized, always holding the team together. There were a couple of newer employees who mostly kept their heads down and tried not to get involved in any drama. They all worked well together, even if some days were louder, messier, or more chaotic than others. And truth be told, most of them didn't think about the owner very much. They focused on their tasks and went home. Normal employees, normal workplace. Looking back, I realize Adam had dropped hints before. Subtle comments like, man, I wonder if the owner even knows what happens down here. Or must be nice to stay at home and let us deal with everything. I thought he was joking. Or venting after a long shift. Nothing serious, nothing personal. But now I see. It clearly, Adam had built an entire perception of me. A whole character in his mind. And that character was, in his opinion, a lazy, disconnected owner who only showed up once in a blue moon. And the most ironic part? The day he finally decided to express all of this was the one day I happened to be sitting right beside him. So picture the scene, a regular workday, everyone doing their tasks, nothing unusual. And then Adam, confident, frustrated, passionately expressive Adam, begins the conversation that would change everything. A conversation where he would open up, rant, criticize, defend himself, express anger, confusion, humor, and a whole lot of emotions, all directed at me, all spoken to me, without knowing who I was. But we're not there yet. Before the storm, there's always calm. And that calm was the last moment of normalcy before everything turned into a 45-minute monologue of accidental truth. The day everything happened started out like any other, nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. Just the kind of morning where the world feels calm, predictable, safe. I walked into the building quietly, as I usually did. Not everyone noticed. They rarely did. Because I blended in easily. Same simple clothes, same relaxed posture, same habit of walking through like I was just another employee minding his own business. The team was scattered around, doing their tasks, joking here and there. Normal workplace energy. The type where you can almost tell how the whole day is going to go within the first 5 minutes. But then I noticed something small. So small that most people wouldn't think twice about it. Adam looked annoyed. Not angry, not upset, just that irritated, restless sort of way he got whenever something was brewing in his mind. He walked a little faster than usual. He sighed a little louder. He kept muttering things under his breath, like someone arguing with their own thoughts. At first, I didn't pay much attention. People have bad mornings all the time. Maybe he overslept. Maybe he argued with someone. Maybe he forgot breakfast. But then he did something he almost never did. He walked right past the other employees and came straight toward me. Now, keep in mind, Adam and I had talked before, of course, but our conversations were usually quick, surface level, joking, casual. He treated me like a regular coworker because, well, that's who he thought I was. But today, he walked up to me with that look of I need to talk to someone right now or I'll explode. You know that look people get when a rant is seconds away from launching? I wasn't expecting anything serious, honestly. I thought he wanted to complain about a customer or joke about someone's loud music again. But then he said, "Hey man, you got a minute? I need to get something off my chest." I remember thinking, oh boy, here we go. Still, I nodded. I figured he just needed to vent. But the moment I agreed, the very second he saw that tiny gesture, it was like pressing a button inside him. He exhaled heavily, rubbed his face, looked around to make sure no one else was listening, and then he said a single sentence that marked the beginning of the next 45 minutes of pure chaos. "I swear, man, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this owner." That was the first domino. The first spark, the moment my brain froze and went, "Wait, what?" But I didn't react. I didn't correct him. I didn't even blink too hard. I just said, "What happened?" And that was all the permission he needed. At first, it was small things. A few comments about how things were being managed. Little frustrations about schedules, supplies, decisions, communication. Nothing too harsh yet. Nothing too personal. The kind of things employees complain about everywhere. But the way he spoke, the speed, the intensity, the build-up in his voice, I could tell this wasn't just a casual rant. He'd been holding this in for weeks, maybe months, and then it happened. He sat down beside me, a little too close, like we were old friends planning an escape from prison, and he lowered his voice. "Look, I'm gonna be real with you. Our owner, man, he is lazy. Like, I don't even think he does anything." I just stared ahead, trying to keep my expression neutral, even though inside my soul was leaving my body at high speed. And he didn't stop. That was just the warm-up. He continued, "Dude never shows up, never checks on us, never asks how things are going. He just sits somewhere counting money while we do everything." Every sentence got more passionate, more animated, his hands moving, his eyebrows lifting, the classic Adam energy, except this time, directed at me without knowing it. And the funny thing, he wasn't even being mean. He wasn't shouting or insulting. He was just honest, painfully honest. As he talked, I realized something strange. Adam genuinely believed what he was saying. And from his point of view, it made sense. He didn't see the late nights I worked. He didn't see the negotiations, the meetings, the planning, the budgeting. All he saw was that the owner, me, wasn't physically present most of the time. And in his mind, absence meant laziness. It was wild, sitting there silently listening to him describe me, not as who I really was, but as the character he had built inside his mind. By this point, Adam was fully committed. His rant had entered cruising mode. He wasn't even warming up anymore. He was in the zone. He leaned back, shook his head, and said, "Honestly, I don't even think he cares about this place. If he did, we'd see him more. We'd hear from him. Something." Every word was like watching someone review a product, while the product is sitting right next to them. Inside, I was dying outside. I calmly nodded and said, "Wow, that bad?" And he exploded with, "Yes, exactly." By now, the tension was unreal. Not dramatic tension, ironic tension. The kind where the universe sets up a situation so ridiculously perfect, so perfectly uncomfortable, that all you can do is sit there and accept it. And the craziest part, this was only the beginning, the build-up, the surface-level complaints. He hadn't even reached the real rant yet. The one with details, examples, accusations, emotions, and the kind of unfiltered honesty you only hear when someone thinks you're just another coworker who shares their frustrations. In just a few minutes, he was about to unload everything, and I mean everything. Up until this moment, Adam's rant had been building like a slow storm, clouds gathering, wind rising, thunder starting to grumble somewhere far away. But then something shifted. There's always a point in every story where the tone changes, where the casual complaints turn into something deeper. This was that moment. It started with a sound so small you wouldn't even think it mattered. A simple buzz. Adam's phone vibrating on the table. He glanced at it, paused, frowned, then picked it up slowly, like he was almost scared to look. And that's when I noticed it. His entire expression shifted, eyebrows tightening, lips pressed together, breathing changing just a little. That wasn't the face of someone annoyed by a message. That was the face of someone who was about to break. He opened the message, then another, and before I even asked what was happening, he locked the phone, put it face down, and looked straight at me with an expression I had never seen on him before. Gone was the joking attitude. Gone was the loud personality. Gone was the energy. In its place was something heavy, something real. He took a deep breath, the kind that shakes a little at the end, and said, "Man, you ever have a moment where everything suddenly makes sense? Like everything you've been complaining about finally hits you in the face?" I didn't know what he meant. Not yet, but the tension in the air thickened instantly. Adam finally picked his phone back up, showed me the screen, just for a second, and then pulled it back. But in that second, I saw enough. It was a message from another coworker, a screenshot, and a voice note, followed by the words, "He's here today," and below that, "The owner came in early this morning." That was the moment his rant shifted direction, because suddenly Adam realized something. If the owner was in the building and he had been complaining loudly to a random coworker, then he might have just gotten himself in trouble. He looked me dead in the eyes and whispered, "Bro, do you think he heard anything?" The irony almost made me choke. Adam's mind went into overdrive. He started pacing, running his hands through his hair, talking too fast, mumbling to himself. What if he heard me? What if someone told him? What if I get fired? Man, I didn't even mean it like that. Well, okay, maybe I did, but still, he spiraled hard. Meanwhile, I sat there, internally torn between laughing, cringing, and wondering if this was karma or comedy. After pacing for a full minute, Adam stopped, completely still. Then, he sat back down beside me, slowly, like someone preparing to confess a crime, and said, "Okay, listen, I need to be honest with someone, and you're the only one around." He leaned in, lowered his voice to almost a whisper, and then the turning point of the entire story spilled out of him. "I don't hate the owner. I'm just disappointed. Like, I actually care about this place, man. I care a lot, and it sucks feeling like the person in charge doesn't." And just like that, his rant stopped being funny. It stopped being casual. It stopped being something I could brush off as just venting. This was the moment I realized something important. He wasn't talking about a lazy owner. He was talking about feeling unsupported, unseen, unheard. He kept going, voice softer, more vulnerable than before. "I work hard here. We all do. And sometimes it feels like nobody notices, like the owner doesn't even know our names, or what we deal with every day." Every word hit like a punch, because deep down, I knew he had a point. Not about me being lazy. I wasn't, but about being absent, not showing up enough, not checking in personally. He wasn't wrong. And then he said the sentence that truly shifted the direction of the entire story. "I wish I could tell the owner all of this, but I can't because he wouldn't listen to me anyway." That was the moment everything changed. The moment I realized this wasn't about me versus him. It was about what he thought I was and what I needed to be. Adam leaned back, exhausted from the emotional dump, eyes unfocused. He didn't know he was talking to the one person who could fix every single problem he was describing. He didn't know he had just given me the most honest feedback anyone ever had, and he certainly didn't know he was minutes away from delivering the most intense, unfiltered 45-minute monologue of his life to the owner himself. Because this was just the turning point. The real madness, the real unraveling, the real confession, that was still coming. After Adam's emotional confession, there was a moment of silence, the kind that feels heavy, stretched, and slightly awkward. Not because of what he said, but because of what I knew, because of who I was, and because of how much he had revealed without realizing it. But instead of calming down, Adam only got more intense. You see, Adam wasn't the type to let a problem sit quietly in his mind. The moment he shared something, he needed to dig deeper, needed to analyze it, understand it, rationalize it. So he turned his attention from ranting to investigating. Not investigating the business, but investigating me, the owner, through the only person he thought he could trust in that moment, me. He sighed, rubbed his face, then looked at me like I was suddenly a detective with all the answers. "Okay, man," he said, "be real with me. Do you think the owner actually works, like, behind the scenes? Or is he really what everyone says he is inside?" I nearly laughed outside. I nodded thoughtfully and said, "Well, what does everyone say?" That question was like unlocking a flood he had been holding back for months. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice lowering like he was about to reveal government secrets. "Look, people talk a lot, and not just once, not just when they're tired, like, all the time." I let him continue. "Some people think he's loaded and doesn't care about us. Some think he's barely alive and hiding in his house. Some think he's traveling the world while we run this place. Internally, I thought Wow, I didn't know I had such an interesting life according to my employees. Then Adam did something that genuinely shocked me. He pulled out his phone again. Not to check messages, but to open a notes app. Bro, you wanna know how serious this is? People have theories, actual theories. I stared at him. He wasn't joking. He scrolled and showed me a list titled, Possible Reasons Why the Owner is Never Here. It had bullet points, actual bullet points. They read like this. He's secretly rich and doesn't need this place. He's depressed, he's lazy, he's planning to sell the business. He's running another business somewhere. He's gaming all day. He's avoiding us. He hates confrontation. He has a second family in another city. At that one, I choked on my own breath. Dude, I said, what? He shrugged like it was normal. Bro, I didn't write these. People talk. Then he shifted to a deeper tone. Not gossipy, not dramatic, but curious. Genuinely curious. But you know what, man? He said, I keep thinking. What if there's something we don't see? Like, what if there's more to the story? Finally, a sentence that wasn't a direct roast. I leaned back and said, why don't you ask him yourself someday? And that triggered another emotional explosion. Ask him. Bro, I can't even see him. How am I supposed to talk to a ghost? The more he talked, the more layers peeled back. His frustration wasn't just about me being absent, it was about wanting to feel acknowledged. He started pacing again, slow steps, hands moving. Eyes unfocused, man. We're working our asses off every day. And sometimes it's like, what's the point? Nobody checks on us. Nobody asks how we're doing. Nobody says good job. He swallowed hard. The owner should know what it feels like to be here. But he doesn't. Those words cut deeper than the insults. Because unlike the complaints, those were true. He had no idea how hard I worked behind the scenes. But he also didn't know that I had become so focused on running the business that I forgot to show up for the people running it with me. Then Adam did something even crazier. He sat back down, unlocked his phone again, and said, you think I'm exaggerating? Let me show you something. I braced myself. He opened his PHOTOS. A whole album titled, Owner Things. I swear I almost fainted. He scrolled through pictures, a shelf that needed fixing, a broken chair, a late supply delivery, a messy corner, someone didn't clean, a screenshot of the schedule, note saying, owner should know about this, a picture of an old Wi-Fi router. With the caption, please. Each one was something he believed I should have personally handled. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hatred, it was misplaced responsibility he felt forced to carry. He tapped the album and said with a sigh, if I ever meet the owner, bro, I'm showing him all of this, everything. Then he looked at me dead serious. I just want him to listen, man. And then the real emotional core finally came out. He sat down again. Voice softer, almost tired. You know what sucks the most? I don't want to leave this job. I actually like it here. The people are good. The work isn't bad. I just wish the owner cared about us the way we care about this place. This wasn't a rant anymore. It was a plea I was hearing directly from the source. Because fate put me in the exact position to hear it. He rubbed his eyes and whispered, I don't need him to be perfect. I just want him to show up once in a while, just so we know he gives a damn. Then, without meaning to, he ended his entire monologue with the line I will never forget. I'd respect the guy so much more if he actually saw us just once. I sat there frozen. Because in that moment, I realized something powerful. This wasn't a story about an employee hating his boss. This was a story about an employee who cared too much and felt invisible. He wasn't trying to attack me. He was trying to understand me. He didn't hate me. He felt abandoned by someone he thought should lead. And as he looked at me, waiting for some kind of response, I realized the next part of this story wasn't about what he said. It was about what I was going to do. Because soon, very soon, the truth about who I was would come out. And when it did, everything would explode. There are moments in life where time seems to split, where you're sitting in one place, but your mind is standing somewhere completely different. That's where I was. Adam was sitting across from me, frustrated, exhausted, emotionally drained, pouring out months of stress. And I was sitting there as the one person he never expected to talk to, the owner. I kept thinking, should I tell him now? Should I wait? Should I let him finish venting before dropping a bomb that could either destroy him or change everything? My stomach was tight, my hands were cold, my heartbeat felt too loud. Because one wrong word, one wrong tone, and I could embarrass him so badly he would never recover from the humiliation. I didn't want that. I just wanted honesty. From him, from myself. As Adam continued talking, something changed. His voice slowed. His eyes narrowed slightly as he studied my face. He tilted his head, confused. Like a puzzle piece suddenly wasn't fitting anymore. Hey, why do you look like that? He asked. I swallowed. Like what? Like you're holding something in. Just listening. No, man. It's more than that. You look guilty. My heart almost stopped. Because for the first time, He wasn't ranting, he was observing. He leaned back slowly, staring at me, not angry, not suspicious, just curious. To curious. He crossed his arms. Okay, dude, real question, yeah? Why do you care so much about what I think of the owner? I froze. You keep asking follow-ups. You keep digging, you keep looking uncomfortable. He squinted. Do you know him personally or something? My throat tightened. This was it. The last exit before the reveal. The final moment to decide. Adam leaned forward. He wasn't joking anymore. He wasn't complaining. He wasn't emotional. He was quiet, focused, waiting. Bro, he said softly. Just tell me, what's going on? I took a deep breath. My mind replayed everything he said, all the stress, all the built-up frustration, all the things he held inside for months without ever getting a chance to express them. If I told him now, I had to tell him gently, respectfully, calmly. I had to protect his dignity. So I finally looked him in the eyes and said, Adam, there's something you should know. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move, and then, right as I was about to speak, something unexpected happened. Adam suddenly gasped, a real, sharp, shocked gasp, nitrogen monoxide way. What? I asked, startled. He pointed at me with wide eyes. Bro, don't tell me. Don't freaking tell me. You are the owner. Silence. Heavy, thick, unmistakable. I didn't nod. I didn't deny it. I just existed, and that was enough. His face went pale. His jaw literally dropped open. He stumbled backward, hands on his head like he just witnessed a murder confession. New bro, nitrogen monoxide, nitrogen monoxide, nitrogen monoxide, nitrogen monoxide. He paced in circles. He looked like his soul left his body, took a vacation, then realized it forgot its passport. He started speaking so fast I could barely keep up. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't know you didn't know. Bro, I just called you lazy for like WHAT 45 minutes. You did. Yes, oh my god, I'm fired. You're not fired. I am fired. I have fired myself. I am unemployed. Adam, calm down. Calm down. I just gave my boss a TED talk about how he sucks. He grabbed his head. He looked at the floor like it personally betrayed him. Then he whispered, I'm dead. My career is dead. My future is dead. My mother will bury me alive. He finally stopped pacing and looked at me. Really looked at me. Not with fear. Not with anger. With regret. Pure, overwhelming regret. Boss, I am so sorry. He said quietly. If I knew. I swear I never would have said any of that. And that was the moment. The turning point. The climax wasn't him realizing I was the owner. The climax was the truth that came right after. I wasn't angry. I wasn't offended. I wasn't insulted. I was grateful. Grateful that he told me everything I needed to hear. Grateful that I finally understood what my employees were carrying. Grateful that someone cared enough to speak honestly, even if it came out messy. I took a breath and finally said, Adam, I'm not upset and you're not fired. In fact, this conversation helped me more than you realize. His eyes lifted, hope, confusion, relief, all tangled together. And that's when the room finally exhaled. The tension cracked, the fear softened, the panic faded, because this wasn't the ending. This was the moment the real story started. The moment where he finally knew who I was. And I finally knew what he felt. Now that the truth was out, there was only one question left. What happens next? The moment the truth settled between us, the entire room felt different. The panic was fading, but what replaced it wasn't comfort, it was uncertainty. Adam was standing there frozen, hands clasped together, shoulders tense, eyes flicking between the floor and me. A man trying to prepare himself for a punishment that wasn't coming. He swallowed hard, his voice shaky as he finally spoke. Boss, I didn't mean to disrespect you. I got frustrated and I guess I exploded. I'm really sorry. He wasn't dramatic anymore. He wasn't ranting. He wasn't joking. This was raw honesty. The kind that comes only after a person's entire soul gets flipped inside out. I let him finish, then said quietly, Adam, you told me the truth, and sometimes the truth isn't disrespect. It's clarity. He blinked. Confused. Clarity. Yes, I said. Everything you said. I needed to hear it. He sat back down slowly, like he still wasn't sure if this was a trap. I thought I was done for, he admitted. I thought you were gonna fire me on the spot. I shook my head. If anything, you just showed me how much you care about this place. He stared at me like I had just spoken a different language. I care too much sometimes, he whispered. That's when things finally calmed enough for us to talk. Not as boss and employee, but as to people who shared the weight of the same workplace. I asked him, what's actually been bothering you? Not the rant, the real reason. He hesitated at first, then finally let it out. Not loud, not angry, just real. Boss, We just feel alone sometimes, like nobody above us sees what's going on. Not you specifically, just the distance, He paused, rubbing his hands together. We don't want you to be perfect. We just want you to be present. And that sentence hit me harder than any insult could have. I nodded slowly, letting every word soak in. He was right. I have been running the place efficiently, but from a distance, sending messages, checking reports, doing everything except actually being there enough. Not because I didn't care, but because I assumed everything was fine. His rant showed me how wrong that assumption was. So I told him, "You're not wrong, and I should have been around more. That changes now." The look on his face was something I'll never forget, equal parts relief and disbelief. I continued, "Adam, no one gets in trouble for being honest here. If something's wrong, I want you to tell me, and I promise, I'll listen." His shoulders finally dropped, tension melting off him. "I never thought you'd say something like that," he said quietly. "Why?" I asked gently. He shrugged. "Because most owners don't care. Most bosses just want work done, no questions asked." He paused, then added, "Today, you proved you're not like that." After the intensity of the last hour, there was finally peace. We talked for a long time after that, not about problems or complaints, but about ideas, improvements, ways to make things smoother for everyone. The shift from confrontation to collaboration was almost surreal. At one point, he even laughed and said, "I can't believe I said all that to your face." I smirked. "Honestly, I'm glad you did." For the first time since the entire chaos started, he smiled, a real smile. As we wrapped up the conversation, Adam let out a long, relieved breath. "Boss," he said softly, "thanks for not embarrassing me or firing me." "Why would I? Because I basically insulted you for an hour." "No," I corrected. "You opened my eyes for an hour." He nodded slowly, taking that in. "So, we're good?" "We're better than good," I replied. "We're honest now." That's when I realized something important. This entire situation wasn't a disaster. It wasn't disrespect. It wasn't a mistake. It was a bridge. A bridge between me and my employees. A bridge built through the most unexpected and honestly hilarious rant in history. Adam didn't lose his job. If anything, he strengthened his place because honesty, even messy, accidental honesty, builds trust. As we got up to leave, he turned to me one last time. "Boss, yeah, next time the owner comes in early," he smirked, "can you maybe tell me before I give him another TED Talk?" I burst into laughter. "Deal," I said. And with that, the tension broke for good. Looking back, that day could have ended in disaster. But instead, it turned into one of the best, most honest conversations I've ever had as an owner. And it all started because one employee didn't know who he was talking to, and that was the story. A story that started with a rant turned into a meltdown and somehow ended as one of the most honest conversations I've ever had. It's funny how life works sometimes. You walk into a room expecting a normal day, and you walk out with a lesson you didn't even know you needed. Adam didn't just complain. He opened a door to things I should have noticed earlier. Things every leader forgets from time to time. People don't just need management. They need presence. They need to feel seen. They need to know someone is paying attention. And honestly, this whole situation made me realize something I want to say to anyone listening. Whether you're a boss, a worker, a student, or just someone trying to get through life, communication matters. Sometimes people don't complain because they hate something. They complain because they care. And sometimes the truth you're scared to hear is the truth that changes everything. Also, note to self, maybe next time I walk into work early, I should wear a name tag that says I am the owner. Please don't roast me. But seriously, thank you all for sticking around through this entire story. If you enjoyed it, the chaos, the honesty, the humor, the emotion, let me know in the comments. Your support means more than you know. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you love long, real, detailed stories like this. And tell me, what kind of story should I narrate next? Horror, Ada, workplace drama, relationship chaos, mysterious events, cheating stories, paranormal encounters, whatever you want, I'll turn it into a full, cinematic Reddit-style story. Thanks for listening, Reddit friends. Until the next story, stay safe, stay curious, and stay honest.